Before the First World began, Europe already stood on a dangerous fault line. Great empires dominated Europe, competing for territory, influence, resources, and strategic advantage. Meanwhile, European powers were building armies and weapons on an unprecedented scale. Britain and Germany competed fiercely at sea, turning naval power into a symbol of national strength. Across Europe, nationalism was becoming powerful enough to turn political disputes into matters of national pride. Secret agreements and military alliances meant that a conflict between two countries could pull many others into war. Nowhere was the tension greater than in the Balkans, where nationalism and imperial ambitions repeatedly collided. Several earlier crises had already brought Europe close to war, yet each time, diplomacy pulled it back. But military plans were built around precise timetables, making mobilization increasingly difficult to stop once it began. So was the Great War inevitable, or were decisions made by a handful of leaders about to make it happen? On June 28, 1914, a royal visit to Sarajevo would change the course of history. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to Austria-Hungary, was visiting a province already filled with political tension. Then a wrong turn brought the royal car directly toward a waiting assassin. Gavrilo Princip fired the shots that killed Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie. The news raced across Europe, but the assassination itself did not automatically mean world war. In Vienna, leaders decided that Serbia had to be confronted, but they wanted German backing first. Germany gave Austria-Hungary strong support, a decision later known as the blank check. On July 23rd, Austria-Hungary delivered Serbia an exceptionally demanding ultimatum. Serbia accepted most demands, but Austria-Hungary rejected the response and prepared for war. Within days, declarations of war transformed a Balkan crisis into a conflict that would engulf Europe and eventually the world. On July 28th, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. The crisis had crossed the point of no return. Russia began mobilizing to support Serbia, but Russian mobilization also threatened Germany directly. Germany feared the nightmare of fighting France and Russia simultaneously, a war on two fronts. Germany's answer was a strategy designed to defeat France quickly before Russia could fully mobilize. To execute its Western strategy, Germany moved through neutral Belgium, dramatically changing Britain's position. On August 4th, Britain entered the war, officially transforming the European crisis into a much larger conflict. The campaign failed to produce the quick victory it needed, and the Western Front began to harden into a stalemate. Across the Western Front, trenches transformed the war. It became a brutal struggle of endurance rather than rapid movement. Far to the east, the war remained more mobile, stretching across enormous distances that dwarfed the Western Front. What began in Europe was no longer a European war. The conflict was spreading across the globe. By 1915, victory increasingly depended on something less glamorous than which side could endure longer. Artillery became one of the defining weapons of the war, reshaping battlefields on an industrial scale. Machine guns made exposed advances extraordinarily dangerous, helping defensive positions dominate much of the battlefield. Chemical weapons introduced another terrifying dimension, prompting armies to develop new forms of protection. In 1917, tanks appeared on the battlefield, promising a way to break the deadlock created by trenches. Aircraft began as scouts, but quickly became tools for reconnaissance, bombing, and aerial combat. Far from the trenches, control of the sea became a battle over trade, supplies, and survival. Britain used its naval power to restrict German trade, turning the global economy into another battlefield. Far from Europe, soldiers from British India were mobilized. They fought for a war that was not being fought on Indian soil. Millions from across the empires were drawn into the conflict. making the First World War truly global. At Gallipoli, the Allies attempted to force a route toward Constantinople, but the campaign became a costly failure. The Ottoman Empire opened another enormous front, stretching the war deep into the Middle East. At Verdun, Germany and France fought for months in one of the war's most devastating battles of attrition. Then came the Somme, where the scale of industrial warfare produced staggering losses on both sides. Behind the battlefields, another war was being fought, through intelligence, interception, codes, and deception. Governments also fought for something invisible but crucial: public opinion, morale, and control of information. On Christmas in 1914, soldiers in some sectors briefly stopped fighting, revealing a human side of the war rarely. Millions who never entered a battlefield still experienced rationing, shortages, censorship, displacement, and profound social change. Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare helped bring the United States into the conflict in 1917. Then revolution shattered Russia's old political order, eventually taking a major power out of the war. With Russia out of the war, Germany made one final attempt to win before American strength became decisive. With Russia out of the offensive failed to deliver victory, and the Allies increasingly seized the initiative. By late 1918, the Central Powers were collapsing, and centuries-old empires began disappearing. In Germany, revolution spread. Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated, and the government sought an end to the war. At the 11th hour of November 11th, the guns finally fell silent. Millions had died, millions more were wounded or displaced, and entire societies had been permanently transformed. And just as the war ended, a global influenza pandemic added another enormous layer of suffering. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire were transformed or destroyed, redrawing the political map. So who was responsible? No single answer exists. Austria-Hungary, Germany, Russia, and others made decisions that escalated the crisis. World War I ended in 1918. But its consequences helped create the world that would face another war.